Hello, everyone. Today we are diving into another episode, and I'm really excited for this one. Well, I think I'm going to be excited for all of them, but this one in particular, I think is really important because of the implications that this could potentially have for both parents and coaches. And that is because today we're talking about middle school. And for me, middle school, and I think for most kids, middle school is particularly challenging. One could argue it might be the worst. On the other hand, it can also be one of the best times to be a mentor in the position of mentoring somebody in that age. And I'll go into a little bit as to why that is. Now, let's start with why is middle school so hard? And I'll just talk about a little bit of my experience and then dive into more of why I think it's become even worse, honestly, now. And so, going right into it, one, when you go into middle school, I really feel like you are starting to understand on a higher level what society expects of you and also what society in general values. You start to understand more and internalize the images that you might be seeing. And for me growing up, it was a lot of, we had definitely had more magazines. Social media was not widespread at that point. I think YouTube was starting to come into the picture a little bit, maybe some MySpace towards the end. Um, and I will say, just again, this will age myself, but you start to experience the negative sides of the hormones and people trying to figure out what is valued and be valued, right? And so there's a lot of emotional, well, lack of emotion regulation with things happening, hormones. There's just so much going on. It's such a difficult time. And for me, some of the not great things that happened. So again, dating myself, there was a communication platform called AIM, AOL Instant Messenger. Think of it for the young people like Snapchat, but it really wasn't as popular to send photos. But you could create anonymous usernames and send messages to whoever you wanted. And the good thing was you could talk to your friends as much as you wanted. I usually got in trouble for being on it too much. Um, and so this was sort of the beginning of the technology problem, you could say. And that was the first time in my life that I got bullied online. And likely it was by a friend and a teammate who made fun of me because I shopped at Marshall's. And also, the way that I shot apparently was like a boy, and that was not good at the time. I also became aware of um, things like status. Like I remember I wanted a pair of Uggs for so long, and my mom came and told me that she had gotten me Uggs, and I was so excited. And so naturally, I went to school and was like, "Look at my Uggs." And one of my friends at the lunch table like looked down and then looked back at me and was like, "Lindsay, those are fugs, aka fake Uggs." Now, I can obviously laugh about this now, but to be in 6th or 7th grade and to think you had Uggs and to realize, "Oh no, you're not." It was so embarrassing. Obviously, you can imagine the conversation I had with my mom later was not great. Um, Additionally, when I was in middle school, it was the first time that I really experienced anxiety. I would think about these moments where I messed up and I just felt my heart pound so much. I even became short of breath. And my mom's a nurse, so I would tell her about what was happening. And so she took me to see a doctor. They said I had a heart murmur, but it's very clear to me now this was anxiety because this is how I feel it now to this day. And with that, you know, I just kind of pushed it away. This is just something that happens or something that's wrong with me. So that sort of explains a little bit of what happened later on in my life as I was talking about last week. And then I'll also say on the flip side, middle school was so great because I had so many of my childish tendencies that honestly still remain today. I loved anytime I got to play, outside, especially playing sports. I played so many different sports. I would go watch my brother play lacrosse. He played at DeMatha High School, which is a very well known high school in the area. Paul Rabel actually was on his team. And that was like the greatest thing ever was to go watch them play. And I remember having time with my family. We would go to amusement parks. My sister danced as well, so we would travel for her competitions. And so there was a lot of really great times and a lot of not really great times. And that's, again, just really common in middle school. So many kids are trying to figure it out. And why I think it's important to share is one, for families, parents, coaches, kids to know they're not alone in these experiences. And then also, I just really want coaches, especially, to understand that I think middle schoolers get a bad rep. And I jokingly will say this to people like, you can say whatever you want to me. Like, I coach middle school girls because you just never know what you're going to get with middle schoolers on any given day, to be honest. And I think a lot of times what happens is we see something behavioral and we just get maybe triggered or defensive or make assumptions on that player when in reality those players are just trying to figure out so much. And in my newsletter I talk about some examples of this, but I think the most striking example that I could share with everyone today is actually I worked with an athlete starting in middle school, and continued to work with her throughout high school. And she said to me at one point when she was in high school, she was like, "Wow, I was such a menace when I was younger. I don't know how or why you coached me." Because I will say this athlete would, because she didn't know how to at the time deal with all the frustration she was dealing with, making mistakes. And again, that just emotion regulation piece wasn't there. She would throw things, stick, gloves, ball, whatever. And so, that was her context of thinking that. To me, yes, of course, this was hard. Nobody, inherently coaches because you want to have a kid throwing things in front of you. However, what I told her is that I never thought she was a menace. I knew immediately there was something else going on here, and especially based on my experiences there's something more going on. And so we would have a lot of conversations during those early days, and I also saw a ton of potential in her. And so that's why I coach her. That's why I coach anybody. There's a lot of potential. I want to help. And, especially in those cases where kids just really need someone to be there for them. And it is going to look different in every single context. I have another middle schooler, again, I talk about this in the newsletter, who it just was an entirely different situation. But it is just so critical that you are able to be with and support that athlete no matter what, especially during that middle school age when they're just trying to figure out so much. And it's so hard, especially with social media now. I mean, you cannot say that it has not had a massive role. I feel like people are having conversations with it everywhere, to the point where I am right now. When I eventually have kids, I do not want them to go anywhere near social media for a really long time. Probably not until high school, to be honest, because of the effects. And I'm not saying anybody who lets their kids on social media earlier is wrong. It's just, again, we need to be supporting them through it and making sure they understand what is real, what is not, and what should be emphasized, and having conversations around it too, giving them space to um to just voice what's going on and be there with a super non-judgmental ear, which is really important because I know it's so easy to want to always jump in and give advice, and we really need to just make space for them to feel comfortable to speak and how they feel and to be supported in that. So my biggest thing is to do that for coaches, for parents, to allow spaces for athletes to open up, to have conversations about what they're seeing, what they're experiencing with their peers, so that there doesn't have to be as much of that hardship. Now, there's no way there's going to be none. It just is the nature of the beast of middle school. But again, it's going to be a lot better when there are more supportive people in that athlete's life. And as always, I hope this was helpful. And if anybody has any questions about my experience coaching middle schoolers, about my own experience in middle school, I'm more than happy to share that. And one thing I didn't say that I did talk about in my newsletter, I will say, is that one coach in particular, Coach Sue Conant, played a very large role. She was my rec coach. And for me, having an adult that was supportive as well was really important for me and for my enjoyment in the game of lacrosse as well. I think that was really when I started to really grab hold of it more. I always really liked it, but during that time, once I started to get better and I felt like I had a really supportive coach and team, that really made everything so much more intense in a really great way that I wanted it to be at that level. So did want to say that. And again, hope this was helpful. If anybody has any questions anytime, feel free to reach out. Until next time, bye.